Sustainable economic growth is one of the United Nations' 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Brands have the potential to play an important part in achieving this goal. The key is to build sustainable brands which foster and facilitate economic growth. Picture yourself in the following scenario. You're responsible for brands at your organisation, and your CEO calls you into their office for an unexpected friendly chat about building a sustainable brand. You're familiar with what sustainable means in terms of big picture issues like reducing carbon emissions, plastic use, and the circular economy. But you haven't really thought about what building a sustainable brand at your organisation means. The meeting doesn't go well. You struggle for answers and leave with the clear objective from your CEO to build a sustainable brand. How can you do this? What should it entail? If this scenario sounds familiar, don't worry. You're not alone. My keynote has been designed especially to help you solve this problem. Hi, my name's Darren Coleman, and I specialise in helping brands drive growth and retain relevance through brand experiences. My agency, Wavelength Marketing, is fortunate enough to work with some great clients across Europe, the Middle East, Asia Pacific, and North America. The type of scenario I've just outlined is increasingly common with our clients. Many marketers appreciate the importance of unifying their brand with a sustainability agenda, but they really struggle to understand how they can connect the two and build a sustainable brand. That's what my keynote will cover. Let's get started by looking at the objectives of my keynote. My keynote will share key principles that underpin sustainable brand building. That is my overriding objective. No jargon, no nonsense, just straight to the point, practical advice supported by case studies from around the globe to show you how the advice I'll provide plays out in practice. To help you understand how you can build a sustainable brand, we'll focus on 4 points. First, it's important you appreciate a sustainable brand is built for stakeholders, not just customers. Brands that focus purely on customers confuse simplicity with simplification. Why? Well, brands engage with a complex ecosystem of stakeholders. They need to be mindful of the broad range of stakeholders who engage with their brand. Sustainable brands understand and embrace a stakeholder-centric, not customer-centric mentality. Then we'll look at how focusing on helping stakeholders get jobs done will enable you to build a sustainable brand. Thinking about the jobs your stakeholders need to get done when building your brand will help you focus on the end and not the means. This is important because this is where the value lies, the sustainable sources of value, and so you need to focus your efforts there. Next, we'll look at why you need to define balanced brand values to build a sustainable brand. This encompasses having brand values that are functional, emotional, core, and peripheral. Balanced brand values infuse your brand with functional and emotional appeal that endures but also retains relevance so your brand can move with the times. In the final part of my keynote, we'll look at why you need to use evidence-based insights to educate and engage the C-suite with brands. This is really important because the C-suite holds the key to investment that is required to build sustainable brands. We've just covered the objectives for my keynote. Now let's look at why sustainable brands need to focus on stakeholders and not customers. Traditional marketing wisdom would have you believe brands need to be built for customers. Customers are important, but focusing purely on customers confuses simplicity with simplification. Just stop and think about your brand or a brand you're familiar with. Who does that brand need to engage with? Customers? Yep. But there are also other stakeholders. Take German car brand Volkswagen as an example. In addition to customers, they engage with employees, boards, work councils, academics, experts, investors and analysts, to name but a few. The list is long, but their brand needs to engage with all of them. We can also see from Volkswagen stakeholder management, the brand is looking to align with a number of the UN Sustainability Development Goals. Affordable and clean energy, responsible production and partnership goals being of particular note. Nestlé and Unilever provide another example of stakeholder management. These organisations' CEOs recently stated they plan to make their supply chains deforestation free by the end of 2025 and support the communities that protect them. In this instance, the supply chain and local communities are the two key stakeholder groups for these FMCG brands. Kellogg's engages with schools and communities via its Breakfast Club, which interestingly aligns closely with the UN Sustainability Development Goal relating to zero hunger. Let's take a look.
Teaching is a very rewarding career in many ways. You can watch children grow. You've made a little difference, possibly or hopefully, in their lives along the way. Things that they couldn't do yesterday that they could do today. And often they're even teaching you things as well. Nutrition is very important for children. I think if you want the best learning outcomes for children, they've got to be provided with a nutritious breakfast. Many children were coming to school with no breakfast or a bag of chips, and so we started the Breakfast Club, and we opened up to everyone in the school to come along and have some cereal and some fruit, and we sit around the table and we chat. They came to school looking forward to the breakfast room and having some food and being able to interact with other children around a table. I don't think they ever got that at home. One in particular, who was well known for his disruptive behaviour, has really settled down, and we believe that the Breakfast Club's been responsible. Without Kellogg's, we wouldn't be able to run the breakfast program. The school provides milk, and that's the only budget we have. We've been able to keep the Breakfast Club running. Without them, there would be no breakfast room.
Meet you by the seaside, somewhere we can both hide, and we're away. Oh, let's run away and not know where we are going to. Let's go far today and it's all gonna be wonderful.
What do you think? I won't lie, the cynic in me questions whether this is merely a ploy to get customers young. On the other hand, it's an example of how a brand has decided to engage with an important issue in the form of children's nutrition. Kellogg should be commended for that. John Deere's product line includes tractors, combine harvesters and other agricultural equipment at its core. Their My John Deere platform provides an interesting example of how a brand has thought about stakeholders as a part of an overall ecosystem. My John Deere collects data, provides analytics, and enables farmers to share data like soil conditions and farmers operating data with other farmers. John Deere also orchestrates a large network of ecosystem partners, from fertilizer companies to crop companies or agricultural research institutes and universities. The company even collaborates with competitors such as New Holland and Kubota to reduce the cost of deploying and operating technologies, along with the United States Department of Agriculture, to improve healthy food production. Such steps are just one example of how a brand has identified and engaged with stakeholders, but structured the process as a part of an ecosystem that they lie at the heart of. For more detail on My John Deere, I'd check out Dr. Eric Joachim Stahler's book, The Interaction Field. It's a great read and provides a lot more detail. Framing your brand around building it for stakeholders and not just customers is also a better reflection of reality than being purely customer-centric. One person can sit in several stakeholders group. I may be an employee, a customer, an investor, and a member of the local community, or all of these and more. By focusing purely on the customer, you're not viewing the whole picture. Brands need to think about the whole and not the parts, because each stakeholder has the potential to help or hinder your ability to build a sustainable brand. Thinking about stakeholders and not just customers will help you see a bigger, more balanced and ultimately realistic picture your sustainable brand should be built and managed within. Now let's look at how helping stakeholders get jobs done will enable you to build a sustainable brand. We've just looked at why you need to focus on stakeholders and not just customers to build a sustainable brand. Now let's look at why helping stakeholders to get jobs done will help you build a sustainable brand. The notion of jobs to be done thinking was developed by the late Professor Clayton Christensen from Harvard Business School and has seen widespread application from the likes of Stephen Wonker with a spectrum of organisations. The main idea is that you need to understand the jobs customers and other stakeholders are trying to get done. In practical terms, this means you understand the problems they're trying to solve, the solutions they seek. It's then your responsibility to launch goods, services, or experiences that enable those stakeholders to get those jobs done or solve those problems. The job to be done is the end, and that's where the value lies. The good, service, or experience is the means to the end. It enables the delivery of value, but doesn't deliver the value per se. This is a subtle but important point because many marketers focus on the means and not the end, such as getting bogged down with product features and technical details, for example. A jobs to be done perspective challenges the widely held belief that marketing should focus on identifying customers' wants and needs. A lot of the time, stakeholders simply don't know what they want or need. This sounds incredibly rude, possibly arrogant, or dare I say patronising, but it's not meant to be. But stakeholders do know what jobs they want to get done, or the solutions they seek. Let me explain with an example that aligns perfectly with the UN Sustainable Development Goal relating to affordable and clean energy. Octopus Energy entered the UK energy market in 2016. It was founded to bring cheaper, greener energy to the world. Making your money go further in a way that's good for the planet is a job that many, if not all of us, would like to get done. If I asked you what products or services could help you make your money go further in a way that's good for the planet when heating or powering your home, you may mention solar, wind and tidal power, but possibly struggle after that. But what happens when the sun doesn't shine or it's not windy? If you've been to the UK, you'll realise the sun isn't our strong point here. So to help customers get the job done of making their money go further in a way that's good for the planet, Octopus Energy launched the Big Dirty Turndown. The Big Dirty Turndown was a trial to encourage customers to use electric when demand was low and get rewarded with free power for their efforts. This was insightful because when demand is high, the national grid struggles to meet demand, so carbon-emitting gas and diesel stations are fired up to satisfy the UK's energy needs. Octopus Energy didn't ask customers if they needed or wanted the trial and then go into the detail of how the trial should look. No. They simply understood one of the key jobs customers wanted to get done and then designed the trial around that. Customers didn't know they wanted or needed the trial, or possibly that electric was cheaper and cleaner at certain times, but they knew they had a job to be done, and the fine folks at Octopus Energy helped them do that. Focusing on jobs to be done that your stakeholders and not just customers need to get done will help you build a sustainable brand, because stakeholders will always have problems that your brand can help them solve. Now let's look at how defining balanced brand values will help you build a sustainable brand. We've just looked at how jobs to be done thinking can help you build a sustainable brand. Jobs to be done thinking enables you to deliver relevant value that helps stakeholders solve problems, and stakeholders will always be looking to solve problems, so focusing on this will help you build a sustainable brand. Now let's look at the role balanced brand values play in building a sustainable brand. This entails your brand values being functional, emotional, core and peripheral, with this work being based on the thinking of Professor Leslie de. Let me explain. Functional values deliver practical value and relate to the physical performance. Safe, reliable and dependable are possible examples. Brands like Volvo and Cat may come to mind here. Emotional values result in someone feeling an emotion when they engage with your brand. Caring, thoughtful or sensitive are examples. You could reasonably assume Dove is a caring brand. Core values are the cornerstone of your brand. They won't change. It's likely Giorgio Armani has core values of being timeless, minimal or sophisticated, whilst being socially responsible is core to the Body Shop brand. Peripheral values can be fine-tuned with time to help the brand retain relevance. Think about Bentley. The brand used to be quite refined, but in recent years the brand has become increasingly bold, dare I say ostentatious or flamboyant, as expressed through many of its car designs. To give your brand values balance, you want to have core functional, core emotional, peripheral functional and peripheral emotional values. In practical terms, this means you want at least one brand value in each box in this chart. This ensures your brand has functional and emotional appeal which endures but also retains relevance. If you only focus on function, your brand will lack emotional appeal. If you only focus on emotion, your brand will run the risk of not delivering on the functional basics. If your brand values are all core, your brand relevance could reduce as you're not moving with the times. And if your brand values are all too peripheral, you'll become a moving target, so stakeholders won't know how to connect with your brand, so they'll back off. Let me explain this with Volvo as an example. Look at these Volvo adverts from the 1980s. The core of the brand is shaped around safety, which has implicit family associations. The peripheral values focus more on performance, with a playful element as indicated by the tone of voice and aspects of imagery. Fast forward to 2020, you still see there's a safety family element at the core, whilst the peripheral values around performance and being playful have been traded in for more environmental concerns. The cars are also more streamlined, which lends themselves to status, and so the brand becoming a means of individual self-expression. Keeping the core values around safety and family enables customers and other stakeholders to connect with the brand in consistent terms. Fine-tuning the peripheral values has enabled Volvo to move with the times by aligning the brand with the environmental agenda and taking the brand into a higher price point through the streamlined aesthetic. Please know I'm not a Volvo driver and Volvo isn't a client of ours, so I'm not familiar with the inside details of the brand, but I hope this helps illustrate the points that I'm trying to make. Let me share 2 top tips in the context of brand values. These top tips are inspired by lots of questions that clients ask me all the time. First, how many brand values should I have? As a rule, I advise between 4 and 5 as a good number. Any less restricts the scope of your brand to connect with stakeholders at a values level. Any more than 4 or 5 and the practicalities of managing your brand starts to become complex. For example, employees may struggle to remember all of the brand values. This is a common issue. Or the quality of the creative can become diluted as the brand values lack focus. The second question is, how often should I change or fine-tune our peripheral brand values? This isn't set in stone. Any decision you make should be guided by evidence-based insight, indicating the relevance of some of your brand values is starting to fade. Evidence-based insight is what I'd like to turn to next. We've just looked at how balanced brand values can help you build a sustainable brand. This entails your brand values being a combination of functional, emotional, core and peripheral brand values. Embracing a balanced approach to defining your brand values helps anchor stakeholder perceptions but enables your brand to move with the times and so retain relevance. Now let's look at how you can use evidence-based insight to build a sustainable brand. This entails engaging with key members of the C-suite, such as the Chief Financial Officer and the Chief Executive Officer, who tend to have the final say when it comes to signing off brand budgets. But doing this is easier said than done. The mindset of a CFO is frequently framed by the relative objectivity of finance, and most CEOs have a financial background. This means many CFOs and CEOs can struggle to understand brand as an intangible business asset, but this is precisely where your opportunity lies. You need to show evidence and not share personal anecdotes that brand as an intangible asset delivers genuine commercial value to your organisation. Doing this will enable you to speak their language and meet on C-suite common ground. It will also give you a more defensible position when it comes to securing budgets to build a sustainable brand. To support your business case for building a sustainable brand, I'd recommend 2 particularly influential empirical bodies of research. First, How Brands Grow 1 and 2 by Professors Byron Sharp and Jenny Romniak. These scholars provide evidence that brands grow through a variety of means with a focus on mental and physical availability. Mental availability relates to your brand coming to mind at specific moments when somebody is ready to buy. These are category entry points. Physical availability relates to your brand being where customers want them when they're ready to buy, or when your brand is ready to invest when investors want to buy, etc. Professor Romaniak's work around distinctive brand assets highlights how key visual cues such as McDonald's iconic golden arches or the Coca-Cola bottle provide shorthand cues which are central to building mental availability. This sketch from Dan White summarises the connection between distinctive brand assets in addition to mental and physical availability really nicely. We can see how a distinctive brand asset, such as Colonel Sanders for KFC, builds a network of brand-related associations that create mental availability. When combined with physical availability, in other words, KFC outlets and where you could buy the product, this drives penetration and sales. Second, Effectiveness in Context by Les Binet and Peter Field highlights the importance of brand response campaigns to building sustainable brands. Brand response campaigns entail building long-term memory structures through brand building combined with shorter-term brand activations to get people to buy your product or consume your service or to get stakeholders to engage with your brand. There are other evidence-based books out there, but the work of Professors Byron Sharp and Jenny Romniak, along with Les Binet and Peter Field, is a great place to start. They show in no uncertain terms how brands are valuable intangible assets that deliver real commercial value. This is something the CFO and the CFO will be interested in. Sharing evidence-based insights with the C-suite will enable you to secure the investment that is required to build sustainable brands. Next, I'd like to revisit the scenario from the start of my keynote to show you how the advice I've shared can play out in practice. My keynote opened by asking you to picture yourself in the following scenario. You're responsible for brand at your organisation and your CEO calls you into their office for an unexpected and friendly chat about building a sustainable brand. You were familiar with the term sustainable but weren't sure what it meant in the context of brand and certainly not your brand. Hopefully now you can paint a different picture in your mind. When you're asked how to build or at least start to build a sustainable brand, you can outline how you'll focus on stakeholders as your brand needs to engage with more than just customers, because sustainable brands embrace a stakeholder mindset. You'll help stakeholders get jobs done so your brand provides solutions to the challenges they face in their lives. Stakeholders will always seek solutions for problems they have, so delivering relevant value that will help these problems will help you build a sustainable brand. You'll have balanced brand values that are functional, emotional, core and peripheral. This ensures you infuse your brand with functional and emotional appeal that endures but also retains relevance. Finally, you'll base your actions on evidence-based insight, not personal anecdotes, to secure finances required to build a sustainable brand. Hopefully now you can picture your CEO smiling, looking at you and then asking why you're still sitting in their office, as you clearly have great ideas and a job to be done. Don't worry, some in the C-suite are never satisfied, but at least now you know where to start and how to structure an approach to building a sustainable brand. We've just revisited the scenario I opened my keynote with. The goal was to help you see how the advice I've provided can play out in practical terms. Now I'd like to revisit the objectives I set myself at the start of my keynote to show they've been achieved. By now you should have a good understanding of some of the key principles that underpin sustainable brand building. That was my overriding objective. Specifically, this entailed thinking about stakeholders and not just customers. Doing this will help you see a bigger, more balanced and ultimately realistic picture your sustainable brand should be built and managed within. We then looked at how you can build a sustainable brand by helping stakeholders get jobs done. Focusing on jobs to be done, not customers' needs or wants, will help you build a sustainable brand because stakeholders will always have problems that your brand can help them solve. Next, we looked at how you can define balanced brand values so your brand has functional, emotional appeal which endures but also retains relevance. Finally, the importance of sharing evidence-based insights to engage, align and influence key members of the C-suite was highlighted, as this will enable you to secure the investment that's required to build sustainable brands. Sustainable economic growth is one of the United Nations' 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Brands have the potential to play an important part in achieving this goal. The key is to build sustainable brands which foster and facilitate economic growth. I wish you every success with building your sustainable brands. Please keep in touch.